Good morning, Charles. How are you today?
Good morning, Dan. Doing well. It's been it was a busy weekend, and it's been a busy morning so far. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Yeah, had a good weekend planning out some important things for the week and my career. How about you? How was your weekend?
It's pretty good. Went to Epcot Saturday night and got some of the new Festival of the Holidays snacks that were pretty tasty. Let's see. I'm trying to think of where all we stopped. I think, the African area had a hot peanut stew that was really good. It was stew with some rice and some peanuts and some sweet potatoes, and it was kind of spicy.
Oh, nice. I like it.
So my
Sounds
girl
good.
and I, we split a bowl of that, and it was way better. Usually for all of the festivals at Epcot, the African area that they have, the seasoning doesn't quite work with me. It's just not the kind of seasoning, like there's a lot of, was it turmeric, whatever they call it. There's a lot of that in there, and I'm not a huge fan of that sometimes. And sometimes there'll be a little bit too much cilantro or something, but this was amazing. It was really good. And then went to China. They had a beef and noodle soup that one I didn't really care for. I didn't have very much of that one. The beef was good. The soup and the noodles were not ideal. And then on the way out, they're doing a cookie stroll for the Festival of the Holidays, where if you get 5 different cookies and have your little passport stamped, then you get a 6th free cookie that you can only get by getting the other 5. And so, Ariel got the cookie, and I had maybe a quarter of it, and it was good. It was a vanilla shortbread cookie with dusted with powdered sugar, and there was some kind of a fill, like an almond filling in it or something. It was ridiculously good, but very dry. So as soon as I took the first bite, I was like, man, I wish I had a hot cup of coffee to go with this, but it was very tasty.
Interesting that they chose to call it a cookie stroll instead of a cookie crawl, because the consonants work so much better for me. But I'm guessing Disney didn't want to,
with all the walking you have to do at Epcot, they don't want you to feel like it's going to be a lead weight in your stomach when you eat 5 cookies.
It's a stroll. It's not a crawl.
Exactly.
I mean, I think from now on we're going to do bar strolls. And,
that's very, if we ever sponsor one, we should call it that. So, keep it very sophisticated.
The bar meander.
Yeah. And then Saturday I ended up getting my 4th COVID vaccine and a flu shot at the same time. And I woke up Saturday night feeling a bit shitty. Because I don't know if it was the flu vax or the COVID vax, but I think I had a little teeny bit of an elevated temperature, which they say is, that's the most common side effect for both of those vaccines. But by the time I woke up and had my coffee and my breakfast on Sunday morning, I was completely back to normal. But my COVID vaccine card is now full, so the 5th one will be free.
So these are full vaccines, right? These aren't the boosters.
No, the one I just got was a booster. The 3rd one I got was which I got last. I looked at the card. I couldn't believe it. The 3rd shot I got was last October, so it's been 14 months since I got a shot.
Okay.
And the official recommendation is if it's been 2 months since your last one, you should get the bivalent Omicron, whatever.
Okay.
I don't know, but yeah, my cruise is now 13 days away, and I just thought, with all these international passengers and not knowing what it is they're carrying, and
they're just dirty,
blah blah blah.
Right?
I don't know. I don't know.
That's basically what you're saying. They're just dirty.
Listen, no, what I'm saying is
the ones from America are fine. It's those damn international passengers.
By all, no, I'm just saying there are countries out there that are responding to COVID even worse than us, and I don't want or the flu, and I don't want one of them to get me sick.
I mean, look, I know you don't mean that in terms of where they're from. It's just so crowded on a cruise ship, and everybody's in close quarters and on top.
Exactly.
Of each
if somebody
other.
has something, there's a good chance you're going to have something too.
that's been every cruise for the entirety of cruises. You know, they pack the people on there, and
No, absolutely.
yeah, it's hard to keep everything clean, and it's hard for, you know, for things not to spread and stuff. So, you know, do the best you can, you know, and you know, protect yourself. And you know,
there's always a chance of a rotavirus or a rhinovirus or whatever. But I'm hoping that I've taken COVID maybe and the flu maybe off the board. So fingers crossed.
Well, so we talked briefly. I don't know if it was on this podcast or if it was on the Patreon episode about your plan for eating on the cruise.
Yeah.
You were actually going to kind of plan things out, and so I don't know if you're going to still do that. I think that will help with your immune system, because people don't realize how much, you know, fried food can affect, like, trigger your immune system. They have studies to show that just, you know, a handful of French fries cooked in, you know, canola oil or any type of like seed oil, actually your body reacts to that in terms of your immune response the same way as if you're getting radiation treatment. So radiation treatment, we all know for cancer, it decreases your immune system and your immunity, right? Yeah, eating fried foods does the same thing at that same level, and it doesn't take much. It wasn't even a whole order of fries. I don't think.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, and that's the thing is that So you know, you combine, you know, close quarters with eating. Everybody's like, oh, I'm on vacation. I'm on a cruise. Right. I'm going to eat everything, and I've been there. I've done it. It's delicious. It's fun. I mean, look, you know, there's a reason why it's so popular, but unfortunately, it's like a perfect storm of people getting sick, you know.
One of my strategies for avoiding, you know, either eating the wrong things or just overeating is, and thankfully this is my girlfriend's first cruise, so she doesn't have any bad cruising habits and I'm going to have to work against. I'm going to try. And the other thing is, she's not.
What is a bad cruising habit? Hold on a second. What? Give me an example of a bad cruising habit. What would be something like that?
I always like, you know, when I have the option of what I consider to be a fancier experience, I'm always going to take it. Where some people are like super into eating at the buffet and, you know, the Windjammer on the Royal Caribbean and making piling food really high on a plate at the buffet. I've never been a big fan of the buffet. I want to eat basically every breakfast, lunch, and dinner that is available to eat at the dining room. I want to eat at the dining room because you look around and it's nicer and you have a server and, you know, you're tipping those folks, you know, even if you eat at the buffet every meal. I mean, I'm going to tip the dining room staff anyway. And so my thing is eat breakfast, eat lunch, eat dinner, whenever you can, eat in the dining room. And I'm planning, and they also have a couple little like, sort of quick service, counter service restaurants too that are free. My plan is to avoid the buffet, both for, you know, being around sick people, being around, you know, all the fried food and stuff like that. It's just, when you're on a cruise, there are better options than the buffet. I mean, if you're super into buffets, by all means, you know, God bless, enjoy. But I'm not a big buffet guy anyway, because I feel like the urge to overeat and eat food that, you know, makes the not best choice for what you're eating, where when you're at the dining room and you're ordering off the menu and they're bringing you the food and it's a more reasonable, because again, a lot of people that go on cruises are not from America. So, you know, they're happy to bring you 2 plates at dinner, but the one plate that they bring you is it's not like you're eating at Applebee's or, you know, Macaroni Grill, where they just bring you a platter or a charger just packed with food because they don't want, you know, their American customers to feel like they're getting ripped off if they don't have way too much food on their plate. Right. So I'm going to try to go dining room the whole time. And I think that will lead to some better food choices.
Oh, absolutely. And will you be able to see the menu? I forgot. Can you see the menu before you actually go on the cruise of what's being served? That's
a good question. There are probably websites where you can look at the menu. They generally will, after dinner, they'll post the breakfast menu. After breakfast, they'll post the lunch menu. And after lunch, they'll post the dinner menu. So you can kind of get a little bit of a notice. And now, actually, this is a newer ship, so it's probably all in the app, too, where that day's food, you can probably pull up in the cruise ship's app to see exactly what the menu is going to be. But yeah, and I'm pretty used to Royal Caribbean, so I kind of know what to expect for all the meals. like breakfast, I'll do something fairly boring, couple eggs, some bacon strips, and maybe some fresh fruit, something like that, which is the same kind of stuff I eat when I'm home.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think, if you, since you're already comfortable with the menu, you could probably pick something on the fly, or if not, a little bit in advance. And then, I think that would work well. And then I think the more important thing, I know for me, it's, hey, I'm going to pick something off the menu that's healthy, but then pick, specific meals where you're like, okay, this is, I'm allowed to get a little,
sure.
A little loose, maybe have that dessert, or, have a little extra serving of something, or have that fried food or something like that. And just restricted those meals, I think,
right.
Is going to be better than just kind of showing up hungry and then letting your stomach decide
absolutely.
What you're eating. Oh man, that has shot me in the foot so many times.
Yeah. And I'll plan on doing, again, with the dining room meals, as well as the counter service meals. I do see the potential to do some, fairly healthy grazing during the day when I do feel a little bit hungry. I can go get a piece of fruit. I can get some cheese cubes or something like that, or a pinwheel sandwich that's in a wrap instead of in a big brioche bun, stuff like that. I think there are usually options where if you want to behave, you can behave. Because I mean, look, a lot of people go on cruises. Again, both our countrymen and people from out of the country, and they don't want to gorge themselves and feel like crap all the time because they've eaten too much food. I mean, they have jogging tracks on these things now. They have very sophisticated gyms. So there are people that value that, and you need to have food for those folks. But
right.
Yeah, I did. Let me tell you about last night's cheat meal. I went to Marco's Pizza and made the decision to get a medium, which, my general rule when I order a pizza is you got to get the extra large or the double XL because it's a better deal because of how the area of a surface works. But last night, I went and got a medium pizza because my thought was I don't want food lasting past this meal.
Good idea.
If me and the girls split a medium pizza and we both have 4 slices and then we're done, and there's no, pizza hanging out for 2 or 3 more days that I'm, let me have my eggs and sausage for breakfast. Oh, and this slice of cold pizza. So yeah, got the medium pizza, got a meatball pizza with, the normal mozzarella and really good red sauce, and ate half of it for dinner last night while we were watching the beginning of the Santa Claus, which I've never seen. And put half the pizza away, and then this morning it was back on the program.
Fantastic. Good
and I've got some progress to share. This morning was because I got sick. I took a couple weeks off of taking my pictures and doing my body scan with my Zozo Fit suit and stepping on the scale. I am down 3.2 pounds in the last 3 weeks. And my body fat went from 18.4 to 18%.
Okay.
So I dropped.
That sounds like it's definitely possible. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, 0.4% of my body fat is gone, and 3.2 pounds.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
nice work.
Yeah, I didn't do the math on how much of that 3.2 pounds. I can probably do the math and figure out what percentage of that weight was fat and what percent was lean body mass, but I don't really care enough to do the math. I mean, I'm still looking at it as progress, and so I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, let's not overcomplicate it. Just look at it as the numbers are moving in the right direction, and then look at, and you'll see in the mirror. You basically go, okay, wait a minute. I've either if you're losing too much muscle, you'll notice, and if you're losing if you're losing mostly fat, you'll notice. So you don't need to do a diagnosis, a whole scientific schart on everything. I think let's keep it simple. Let's not make it harder than it already is, right?
Yeah, and waking up Monday morning and doing the measurements and taking the pictures is definitely it's a good way to start the week for me. So I like that.
When the numbers go the way you want them to do.
Oh, that's real nice.
Absolutely. It will absolutely help set up your week in a nice way, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Part of me was like, man, I wish I would have weighed in the day after I was, sick with my fever and not eating or drinking anything. But now I'm glad that I didn't, because it would have given me some artificially low numbers that I then would have seen go back up. And, and since I skipped it for those 2 weeks, I'm glad that I did, because this feels like the number that I'm looking at today was a real number instead of a water weight or, whatever,
Yeah.
just because I was sick and I wasn't eating or drinking.
Yeah, you just want to be careful with that because of what you just said, right? So our weight will fluctuate day to day based on how much we've worked out, how much we've eaten, whether we've been sick or not, how much water we drank, how many carbohydrates we had,
how much salt we're eating,
how much salt, right? All of those things. So, if you want to kind of keep things simple and you're okay, just doing the once a week weigh-in, let's just keep doing that. If, to get a more accurate number.
Yeah, I know we talked about doing it daily and then averaging.
Day.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think.
But if you don't want to crunch those numbers either, spend the time. Yeah.
I think with the just as a matter of willpower fatigue, I've got enough habits that I'm trying to manage. I don't think that
keep it simple.
The daily weigh-in makes sense, because again, I'm still in a position where I've got to, walk my scale out to the street or make my little board and all that, and it's just it's
do it once a week, and then if it's not working, if you're not making progress based on the way you look or the way the numbers are, then we can consider tightening that up and doing something different, right?
Yeah.
And maybe weighing a little bit more often. So, but we don't want to give out too much because this is stuff that's only for our Patreon members. So
absolutely,
in terms of,
I did want to, I was proud that things are moving in the right direction, and I'm excited about that. And I've got between, another 3% body fat going from 18 to 15 should be a pretty noticeable difference.
Yep, for sure.
And another 3 after that puts me at 12, which I think will probably be good enough. And, I'm not going to rush it. I'm going to just keep avoiding the things that I know are bad and eating the things that I like the taste of and that I know are good, and just keep moving forward. But it is nice to see the numbers being encouraging. And I am a fan of that Zozo Fit suit. So I'm going to keep using it for a while before I tell people, hey, you should get this. This is really good. But I'm leaning in that direction, and just the process of where you put it on, and then you basically set up your camera or the camera on your phone with the app, and it has you stand facing it, and then every position on the clock, 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, it has you rotate. So it gets
very cool.
Yeah, you stand about 6 feet away, and it gets you all around, and then it tells you, because of the sensors on the suit, it tells you all your measurements, your shoulders, your chest, your neck, your biceps, your thighs, and then when you tell it your height and your current weight, then it's able to use all those measurements plus your height and your weight and say, here's what your body fat is.
That's awesome. I like it. I may want to get one for myself. I like it.
I think it's a pretty good deal. And they've also got a module in their app that they haven't turned on yet, which is for goal tracking, where you'll be able to, if you want a bigger chest or if you want lower body fat or whatever, it's going to have some goal tracking built into the app too, where it can, motivate you and remind you and stuff like that. So that's something that they're working on, where awesome. I bought it before they even had body fat as part of the app. And then like the week I bought it, they turned that function on, and I was like, man, this is, cause I trust it more than the, $18 Bluetooth scale that I bought. I figure, it's probably, and we've talked about before, it's like when it comes to body fat, there is no super reliable and super easy way to measure it. So just pick something and rely on that consistently. Because right now my scale still tell me, it's going down too, but it's still saying I'm 21%. But I trust something that measures my shoulders, my chest, my waist, my thighs. Yep. I trust that to calculate body fat percentage more evenly and more consistently than just the electrical current my scale is going to send from one foot to the other.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see to understand how the suit measures your body fat. Is it electrical current? But if it is, then it might be
the suit's not
more points.
The suit is all visual, where it's measuring the distance between certain parts of my body, and then using my height and my weight, and then calculating it based on how big my chest is, how big my waist is, and using that in concert with my height and my weight to say, okay, based on how big your waist is, how big your chest is, how big your butt is, it then does some sort of an algorithm that says, here's what we think your body fat is.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I wonder how accurate that is. Okay.
It feels like it might be. It feels like it's closer to the realm of calipers than electricity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 I mean, it could be for sure. Yeah, but like you said, it's going to be the difference in, as long as you're keeping a consistent measurement method,
right? Using the same thing.
It's going to be the difference. That's where you're going to see, right? Yep.
So let me, I guess let's jump into the next chapter, because this is my favorite chapter was 3 on ability, and now I read the chapter on prompts, and now this is my favorite chapter. So if this book just keeps getting better, and again, the experience, this chapter I did about 2/3 of it audio, and the final third I read. But God, this guy, he is so positive and encouraging. It's really infectious to listen to him, because just how many times he says, hey, if you tried to make a habit this way and it didn't work, it's not your fault. And he says stuff like that constantly, which I haven't listened to Atomic Habits by James Clear, but I doubt that it's hard to believe he would be as personable as BJ Fogg is. This guy is fun to listen to, and and he's so positive and so encouraging, and his stories about both himself and the people he works with. God, the story where he accepted his brand new neighbor's dinner invite and then just blew it off because he was at work, and she called like 40 minutes after he was supposed to be there. My girlfriend was in the car when I was listening to it, and we both were like, oh God, this feels so awkward. I've been there before, where somebody's like, hey, just checking in to see where you are. It's like, oh my God. I mean, I hate that so much. It happens to me very infrequently, because I have figured out ways to avoid that happening, but it still occasionally happens. And God, you feel terrible when it does, when you stand somebody up for something.
Yeah, his stories are very relatable, and he does not come across as the perfect person. Like, oh, I've got
he's no guru, no.
Right, but that's what makes it relatable and going, okay, hey, look, I can understand where there's a need, and also it helps help me appreciate where this came from. A lot of this stuff. I mean, yes, he's a behavior research scientist. However, a lot of these techniques kind of happen to him, almost what you hear about, like Newton, like the apple falling on his head, like kind of accidental, right?
Absolutely.
Like accidental, and of course, your mind has to be primed for those to be able to pull the great information out of those accidents, such as, why he felt good, flossing his tooth, or why he, the power of after here in terms of chapter 4, and his, I guess it was right after he was taking a shower. He realized, he opened his underwear drawer. And at that point he realized, oh, wait a minute, here's another way, another type of prompt to use in terms of, remembering to do a new behavior. And so, again, it's very interesting the way he presents it, and it's entertaining, and he did a great job making the stories entertaining. And so I agree with you. That's one of the reasons that I got so into this, because he hits a number of different parts of our brain, I feel, in terms of the way he presents the information. So he presents, the scientific reasons why something works. So it's one part of our brain, but then he then applies that in story form. And so that hits another part of our brain, helps us kind of really understand how that applies, and makes it entertaining, so that we're like, oh, okay, I can see how I can apply this to a lot of different, and he provides a lot of different examples. So you really can find something that you can identify with and use yourself.
Yeah. I was thinking about it today, where, there have been a couple of, personal development books that I have started on Audible, and then, 1 or 2 chapters in, I was like, nope, not for me. And I just, pulled the ripcord and I bailed on it. And like, one of them was Wim Hof's book on, cold water and breath work and stuff like that. And one of them was that guy who, it was like the go for a 12-hour walk guy. And, both of them start out their books with these, here's how I founded a $100 million company and then climbed Mount Everest, or, here's how here's this amazing experience I had that you will never have. And now because I've had this amazing experience, take my advice. And that is the quickest way to get me to bail. It's like, don't sell me on how you're such a special person and you've done this amazing, impossible thing with your life, and then load a bunch of advice on me how I can be just like you. It's like, no, you're where you are today because you did these things, whether it was a matter of luck or discipline or training or whatever. You're in a very unique position and you've accomplished these very unique things. And now you're going to give me some boring advice on how I can do something too. It's like, no, I want to hear how you said yes to dinner with your neighbor and then forgot and you felt really crappy about it. You're like, okay, I got to come up with something so I don't do this again. That's the kind of story that resonates with me. Not, while I was on the peak of Mount Everest, it occurred to me that I should develop a practice of going for 12-hour walks, and now you should too.
Right. Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of those books, it's fuzzy. They don't tell you how. They don't do step by step.
Right.
This Tiny Habits, it's step by step. It really is. And it tells you, and also why. So it's practical, that's
okay,
one reason I become a coach. Yeah.
Let's go through the 5 steps that we've covered so far, and then we'll start talking about how important prompts are. So number 1, clarify the aspiration, which is, really get down and get very personal and very close to what the thing is you want to do and why you want to do it, and really examine why you want to do it. Then explore all the options for behaviors that you could create that will get you to that aspiration or that goal. Match those specific behaviors based on what you have the ability to do and what you actually have the desire to do, so that you're not spinning your wheels doing things that aren't actually going to help or that you're not really going to follow through on. And then once you have those behaviors, the ones that are really good, then how small can you make them, or how tiny can you make those? What are your starters? What's the other kind I always forget? The starter step and the
scale back.
Scale back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you scale it back?
Go as tiny as you possibly can. And then step 5 is find a good prompt. And he goes through, and the prompt is the thing that you do before you do the thing that you want to do, or the thing that happens, not necessarily that you do, the thing that happens before.
It's basically your wake up call, right? A little bit. Sometimes, I mean, in some cases, it's right. It's like a little bit, and there's different types of prompts that he talks about, right?
Yeah, I love the list that he made. That when he talks to people who are implementing Tiny Habits, and he says, okay, what are some of your prompts? And there are some weird ones on this list, but I really like them.
Yeah.
Put your ring on the wrong finger. And I wear a ring just for fashion purposes on my right ring finger, and I thought, man, if I ever did move it to a different finger, that would feel so weird, and it would feel so strange, and that would be a good way to remind myself. Send yourself a text message. This is a huge one. Right on your bathroom mirror with a dry erase marker. So behind me, I've since shifted my computer and my camera so that you can't see it. I installed a big full-length mirror that's basically the same size as my bathroom door. So I've got that, but it makes my camper feel bigger, and it also lets me look in the mirror to see a whole outfit. And the idea of just getting a dry erase marker where I could start writing notes on that mirror, I'm definitely going to do that. That's awesome.
Yep.
Rearrange your furniture so something is oddly out of place. Now, I don't have rearrangeable furniture in my place. It's my bed's where my bed is, my dinette's where my dinette is, and my kitchen's where my kitchen is, and I'm not moving my toilet. So that doesn't work for me, but it does work for most people with a house or an apartment. So I like that idea. Move a chair out to the middle of something, or put something in the middle of something. So that's, I guess I could do it with my laundry basket, so that something is just in the way, and every time you see it, you're like, oh, I moved that because of this.
Yeah, I mean, you could make it even smaller, right? If you have a smaller, like a knickknack or something like that, you could move it from if you keep it in a certain place, or if you have a candle that you keep in a certain place, you could move that to a new spot that might be in the middle of the table, right? Like maybe it's next to your bed, the candle, and then you put it like in the middle of your kitchen table, right? And just like, oh, okay. So I do that a lot of times, like if it's like with like my vitamin cases, things like that. If I need to remember to do something, and it's like a one time. And again, these are, these are prompts that these are like one-time behaviors. Typically, this is not something, you got to remember that here, we're talking about kind of two different things here. We've got behaviors and we've got habits, right? And a habit is a behavior you repeat over and over again that you don't need to really think about anymore. Right. And so these are like one-time behaviors that you need to remember. And we're talking about prompts here. Right. So that's why these ideas here, typically are good for one-time behaviors that you need to do, not something that you're doing over and over again on a regular basis or need to do over and over again on a regular basis.
Yeah. I remember, hearing a story, Dr. Drew, when he would go home and sometimes he would bring, he records a bunch of radio shows, podcasts, and he also has a family. And around flu season, when he'd want to take a flu vaccine either to work or to home so that anybody who wanted it, he could give it to them. And so one day he was recording a podcast with Adam, and Adam goes to the break room and opens up the refrigerator, and he sees a little Tupperware full of vaccines with a set of car keys on top. And Drew's like, oh yeah, every time it's flu season and I'm traveling around and I'm giving people flu vaccines, I always put my keys on top of them in the refrigerator so that I never leave the flu vaccine somewhere and,
smart.
Have to drive. Yeah. I have to, they live in LA. So it's like, if you leave something important on one end of town, you're screwing up your whole day. So, so he would always just, put his keys on top of the thing in the refrigerator that he didn't want to forget. And so he literally couldn't leave. And I've done stuff like that before with my sunglasses because I don't, for me, if I leave the house, I have a very photosensitive eye. So if I leave the house without my sunglasses, it's miserable driving around. So I will keep my keys and my glasses in pretty much the same place so that I make sure I don't do that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect example. Great example.
Set an alarm on your voice assistant, which, pretty much all of us have Androids and iPhones now. So all we have to do is tell our Siris and our Googles to remind us to do something. Put a reminder note inside your fridge. I like this one. Ask your child to remind you, which I could see that having mixed results, but I'm sure the proper behavior, definitely not habit, but the proper behavior, you could definitely get that prompt from your kid if you tell them, hey, remind me to do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah. Full disclosure here. That is one of my pet peeves when somebody tells me, hey, remind me to blah, 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 blah. I mean, for whatever it is,
Dan, I am 100% there with you.
I look at that as it is such a pet peeve. It is. So first of all, it is, to me, it's like actually a sign of disrespect. Basically,
I could see that.
Where it's kind of like, I would rather burden you with having to do something else rather than me take responsibility for something that I want to do. It'd be different if it's like for us, right? I mean, if it's, for both of us, it's a little bit different, but if it's like something like, oh, I need to do blah, 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 Dan, could you remind me? I've gotten a version of that, like nobody's business, because it's kind of, I'm like, I have so many ways to remind myself to do stuff, whether it's Todoist or it's, or I put a calendar reminder, or I set an alarm on my phone, or, I'll put a Post-it note on my phone, or whatever, whatever that might be, move something. And so, for me, it's just kind of like, that's, it's it's something for you. And then it's like, you're just too lazy to like find a way to remind, like, or just simply, everybody's got a phone. You can put a calendar reminder. Everybody's got a calendar. You put an alarm on your phone, whatever that might be. You should have a list, like a gross list, whatever that is, right? So, yes. If we're ever hanging out, don't ask me to remind you to do anything.
I'll go a step further, even if it is something for me where it's like, I'm putting together a trivia night or I'm doing comedy or something like that. If I invite you and you're like, just remind me before no,
same thing.
We both know about it right now, and I'm going to do what I have to do to make sure I don't forget about it and I show up. So either do what you have to do to remember it and show up, or don't. But as far as I'm concerned, we're not talking about this again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's, I guess a kid has a little bit less on their plate than an adult. So maybe asking to remind, but still, even that is
again, I think it has to be something very specific that involves the kid and your and you're feeling like the kid has a good shot of not only remembering, but like I'm sure they're the best option for something to share with you. Yeah. I don't have a kid, and I can't come up with a great example of why that would be the thing.
Maybe,
but I'm sure,
maybe I want this toy. I want this toy, or I want to do this activity at this, at this place. And you guys aren't there yet. You're not at the toy store. You're not at the jump park or whatever that is. And so maybe at that point it'd be kind of like, oh, Mom, I want to do this activity at this. Yeah. Right. So, okay. Remind me when we get there, kind of thing. Right. So then you're right. It is something for the other person. And I mean, I guess the same thing would hold true for an adult too, but
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that was one that I was like, that's interesting. And I didn't know exactly how that would work. And then the last one he mentions is stick a Post-it on the screen of your mobile phone, which, yeah, that would certainly get the job done.
Yeah, for sure.
I've not used that before. I have used Post-it notes on my computer monitor in the past, but
that's just for your passwords.
Exactly.
Little inside IT joke there.
Yeah, Post-it note under the keyboard. Whenever There are many times that I'm like, okay, well, I need to log in as this person, so I guess I'm going to reset their password, log in, and then leave them a note that says, "Hey, I had to reset your password. Call me for the new one." And then usually, no, just lift up the keyboard and boom, there it is.
Yep, there it is.
All right, so let's talk about the types of prompts that he mentioned. So the first one is a person prompt. Person prompt would basically rely on your
memory.
I don't know, your memory or your bodily functions.
Right.
To like when I'm gonna do 2 push-ups every time I pee. But the other thing in the one that he tried, I believe, was that he ended up getting himself in trouble was when I get hungry for dinner, I'll remember that I'm having dinner with so and so. Was that his method that didn't work for him? I don't remember exactly.
I don't remember that story, to be honest with you. But
yeah, I think he. I'm looking at the page now. I think it was his grumbling stomach was what he was thinking would remind him.
Yeah, that's.
But same thing. That's not good.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you're relying on your body or your own mind to remind yourself of that stuff, or and so that's with so much these days going on that has become less and less effective. And
really. So, any good habit tracker or to-do list or just organization method, the first thing that they're going to tell you is don't keep thoughts in your brain. Get that thought into, Outlook or your to-do app or, your calendar app or whatever, but do not keep things that are important in your brain and assume that you're going to recall them at the time that you need to do it, Yep. And that's 100% true. So yeah, person prompts are basically, he flat out says they're the worst ones, right?
Yep.
And so don't rely on your memory or your bodily functions to remind you to do something that's very important. Come up with something better.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of also similar to asking another person to remind you. It's almost, you're relying on their memory. If they, unless they now do a little extra work and figure out, they have some sort of reminder system. So that all those systems you talked about, that's the next kind of prompt, right?
Yeah. Look, you can use another person. If you're paying someone to be your personal assistant, then, by all means, make them your receptacle for reminding you to get crap done. Yeah. But short of that, I would say, trying to use your friends or your significant other as your reminder system or your behavior development system is probably not the move.
Right. And I think because the assumption here also with a child is they don't have a to-do app that's going to remind them, or a calendar kind of thing, or some sort of system that's going to remind them. I think, when I read, hey, ask your child or your significant other to remind you, that's basically just relying on their memory and not that they've got an established system that they've already put in place that is actually effective.
Yeah. I was just thinking of an example where you rely on your kid is if you're willing to do something they want you to do that you don't need to do. Like if you're walking into a restaurant and you see a frozen yogurt place and your kid's like, I want frozen yogurt. And you're like, okay, after we finish dinner, if you're still hungry, remind me that you want some yogurt and we'll go there.
Great example. And
then, yeah, you're number one, you don't care if it happens. you're open to it happening, but you don't really care if it happens. Right. And you're saying, okay, if it's a big enough deal to you, then remind me and we'll do it. And then that's pushing it off your plate. It's not your responsibility.
Right. Now we're looking at the motivation here, right? So
exactly.
Your motivation is really low. So, you're a lot less likely to go above the line to actually do it. Whereas his might be right when you're walking in, but after he has a meal, his motivation might be a little bit lower as well. So
exactly.
It may not happen.
Yeah. So I think, I'll just assume that's the kind of thing he's talking about, and we'll leave it there.
Sounds good.
Okay, so the context one. Let's talk about that a little bit more. So these can be designed effectively, but as we'll talk about, he still doesn't recommend this as the absolute best method, right?
Right. Yes, and I think a lot of that is because they're kind of, we're becoming inundated with these type of prompts, these context prompts, right?
Right. There can be, and these are the prompts that mainly people who want you to do something, like people who have a product or a service that they want you to remember that you might want to buy from them. That's what they'll use. They'll send you an email. They'll have a reminder or a notification pop up on your phone because you've got the app. And the list that we went through too, those are all context prompts as well. That'll say, hey, I'm seeing or I'm exposing myself to this circumstance. So now this is going to remind me to do this thing.
Right. Yeah. And over time, he really is predicting that these context prompts are going to become less and less effective. So for example, the app notifications on our phone. I mean, I've seen some people who have every single app on their phone has some sort of notification or almost and multiple notifications. It's kind of like at that point, it just become, you kind of blank out, and it's just, all right, you don't pay attention to any new, whether, the app icon coming up. Same thing, and it happens for me time to time on my calendar, my Outlook calendar. I'll have so many different reminders. So now there's certain things on my calendar where I'll like block out, blocks of time to do work. I used to have those come up as, I'd set in, a notification to come up when that time of the day would happen. The problem is I was ending up missing or ignoring more important things like calls and meetings where they had notifications pop up too. And so I ended up going, oh, well, my brain was like, oh, well, this is going to be just a different block of time where I don't have anything assigned. Whereas I was actually getting multiple reminders that were, both for, the block of time as well as for the, for the meeting. And, so I behave, basically, same thing. If you put Post-it notes all over your monitor,
right.
You don't end up paying attention to any of them.
Then you desensitize yourself. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's funny. They can have, in my case, they usually have the opposite effect that's intended where, if I've got the Kohl's app on my phone, because sometimes if I'm buying something at Kohl's, I'll use that to pay, and it's a quick and easy way. I don't have to give my phone number. I get my points or whatever. But man, after having the app on my phone for 4 or 5 months, and then they just shoot me a notification about an upcoming sale. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot to turn off notifications for this app. And the first thing I do is go to my notifications and turn them off, because no, I don't have this on my phone so that you can remind me to come buy something. I have this phone on my phone for my convenience, not for yours.
Right.
And so, when Best Buy or Kohl's or one of those that I have on my phone, spontaneously sends me what they believe is a context prompt to remind me to buy something from them, the first thing I do to respond to that is turn off the notifications for that app. Like, oh, I thought I left these off when I installed this. Thanks for the reminder that I didn't. And boom, now it's off.
Yep. Right. Yeah. Had the exact opposite, effect that they wanted.
Exactly. Okay. So then, let's see. The best prompt is the action prompt. Wait, is that the best one? Yeah.
Yes.
Is that what he call? Yep. That's what he ends up calling an anchor, right?
The easy way to remember is the action part. Yeah. So the ABC, you have anchor behavior. celebration, action, anchor, similar type, both start with A. So that's how I remember that the action prompt is tied to your existing behaviors, to your existing routines in your day-to-day life.
Something you're already doing, and you know that you're gonna, almost every day or multiple times a day, you know that you're gonna do this thing. And then in the case of, well, I guess, the bathroom push-ups is kind of a person prompt, but if you dig into it, it's more of an anchor prompt, because
yes,
he tied it to flushing the toilet. As soon as I'm done peeing, I'm going to flush the toilet. And as soon as I hit that handle on the toilet, I'm dropping to the floor and I'm doing my 2 push-ups.
Right.
And flushing the toilet is definitely an anchor. And the one that I'm using the most commonly right now is hitting the brew button on my coffee maker. That's, I have coffee every day. I mean, at least I was going to say every day that I'm in my own bed, but honestly, every hotel room now pretty much has a coffee maker. And I'm usually making a cup of coffee. If I'm staying in a hotel room, I'm waking up and I'm making some coffee. And so hitting that button is something I do pretty much anywhere that I'm going to sleep. I'm only sleeping places with coffee makers.
Yeah. Right. And that's one of the things he has us do is basically kind of go through our day in different blocks of time and look at all the different, and he gives some great examples in the book, such as, after I feed the dog, after I turn off my alarm, after I put my toothbrush in the toothbrush holder, all of those things are great prompts. After I empty my inbox, after each meeting, I will, and then, in the evening, after I come home from work and hang my keys on the hook, there's a whole bunch of different anchors we can use throughout our day that we can match some new behaviors with.
Right. Yeah. And, and I appreciate that, when you and I were going through this on our last, Patreon episode, you did a good job of helping me, come up with these anchors and really tying them to the last thing I did, because one of the cautions he gives is, giving yourself fuzzy anchors.
Yes.
That are not really as effective as they could be. And he has a list of them in the book. Like a fuzzy anchor would be brush my teeth, where the trailing edge of the anchor is actually putting my toothbrush back in the charger or back in the toothbrush holder. Instead of just saying after I pour my coffee, it's after I put the carafe back down on the hot plate of my coffee maker. And, again, the idea of let's get as specific as we can, because it's only going to, all the time you invest at the beginning of creating these behaviors by getting as tiny and as specific as you can is just going to help you out and make it easy. And, I have, since Saturday, I've been able to do, pretty much all of them. I ran into a little bit of a snafu with my, my meal prep containers and getting them off Amazon. They're not getting delivered as soon as I wanted them to. And then I looked at getting some at Target instead, because it would be faster, but they were plastic instead of glass. And I feel like, as much as, plastic containers promise that they're stain resistant and they're not going to get, dyed with the tomato sauce or whatever it is you put in them, I don't
They
buy
always
it.
do. No,
Glass is the way to go. So
yes,
I've decided to, I'm gonna sort of white knuckle through my meal planning the next couple days until the exact containers that I wanted arrive on Wednesday, and then I'll just have to shift this week a little bit. But by next Saturday and Sunday, I'll be ready to dive into the schedule that we set up on our last episode.
Perfect.
But and all of them are. I've been able to do all of them except the one that involves my meal prep containers. I've been able to do them every day because I've made coffee every day. So therefore, it's a no brainer. I made coffee every day, so I've done the habits every day.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And it really can be that easy. It blows my mind that it can be that easy, where you could. You just, and that's one of the things I love at the end of this chapter. He's like, okay, now that I've explained all this to you, let's reverse engineer it. Make a list of all these things that you do every day or once a week or multiple times a day that you can just count on. These are just things you do, and make a list of all those. And now let's figure out what behaviors you'd like to tie to them. So, instead of just doing this one thing, now you're going to do 2 things, and it's easy because you do this one thing all the time. So let's just tie a behavior to it.
Right. Yeah, and it's nice because he also gives you a little bit of a mindset and ways to look at it as an experiment, or he calls them recipes.
Right.
Just like a recipe you would modify if something doesn't taste right, you're going to modify this also if it doesn't feel right, if something's not working for you and you've tried it a few times. And so he has you take a look at 3 different things, such as the location, the frequency, and then the theme and purpose of the habit. So what you want to do, or this behavior. So what you want to do is make sure that you're matching up the location, how, like, where you actually typically do this anchor moment, and
right.
make sure like the new behavior fits in that same location. So, you know,
and
you wouldn't floss
location,
your teeth in the kitchen, you know?
Exactly. And location. Well, I would, because I only have one sink.
Right. I know. I mean, you actually have an advantage. You have an advantage being in a camper where everything's right there. So you have a lot more opportunities to like fit in different habits, right?
Yes. And he does mention very strenuously that physical location is the most important one of these 3: location, frequency, and theme / purpose. And their importance is in that order. The most important is the physical location, because, you know, you can't use an anchor at your house or your car that's supposed to tell you to do something as soon as you walk into the office that you just drove to. It doesn't work.
Exactly. It doesn't work, right? And you're going to forget about it, and you're never going to develop that, right? So that's absolutely correct. Yep. The next thing he talked about, the frequency, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, for the physical location, I even look at it, even in my very small camper, I'm trying to tie it to something where I literally don't have to take more than one step away from the anchor to the place where, like, one of mine, you know, to get up and go for my walk every morning is, as soon as I hit the start button on my coffee maker, I put my shorts or pants on, depending on the weather, to get dressed to walk out the door. And I will literally, my coffee maker is at the end of my kitchen counter, and my pants or shorts are sitting on the bed. And so as soon as I hit that button, all I have to do is turn my body and step into my pants or my shorts, because it's right there. And so, I'm making it as close as I possibly can.
Right. And we talked about that in terms of the ability. We're minimizing the amount of physical or mental effort, right? So that's one of the ability chain we talked about in the last chapter. That's you're by picking a proper location, you are reducing a lot of those things that make doing the new behavior more difficult. And in that case, it's mental or physical effort, right? You know, and then the next thing is take a look at the frequency. So you wouldn't necessarily say, all right, look, you want to reduce stress, and I want to be able to kind of reduce stress throughout the day. I'm looking to take, multiple deep breaths, throughout the day to kind of keep me on even keel. You wouldn't tie that to, after I get out of the shower, I'm going to take one deep breath, right? You might change it to something like, after I hear the phone ring, or anybody's phone ring, or an alarm notification, I will take one deep breath. That's something that's going to be happening most likely throughout the day, right? So how often you want to do that matches up.
Yeah. Or even if you, your starter step could be, once I drive to the office and turn my car off in the parking lot, as soon as I, pull the key out of the ignition, I'm going to take a deep breath. And eventually the goal could be, I'm going to get to the office 10 minutes early, and I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes after I take the key out of the lock before I walk in the office. But the starter step would be, I'm going to take that one deep breath, and it could grow into a full-on meditation practice every week, every work day, before you get out of the car and you walk into the office. You've done your 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it was in this chapter or another chapter. He talks about sometimes our behaviors, and I think he talks about meanwhile habits in here. So,
yeah, he does. Yeah.
So there are some habits that you don't. They're tiny habits, and you want to keep them tiny. You're not looking to have them grow. And so in this case, Charles, this is a great example of where you could use this one deep breath in different ways, right? We could keep this as a tiny habit, as just, you're not looking to do more breaths. You're not looking to meditate, and you do that frequently throughout the day, right? And because one breath actually can calm you down quite a bit. But but for meditation practice, what you said is great as well, because now that breath turns into, you want to grow that. And so then maybe the frequency is only once a day. You wouldn't be tying that to a phone going off, because you're not going to meditate for 10 minutes. That's never going to grow. You don't have the time. It doesn't make sense to, every time you hear a notification, to sit there and meditate for 10 minutes, right? So a lot of this is an experiment, right? And it's just kind of figuring out what makes sense and what works for you.
Yeah, and I love that he talks about it constantly in terms of experiments, and I actually do see some value in maybe even buying a. I recently got this little pack of index cards for some of the exercises, because a lot of the exercises in the book refer to laying out index cards, and the idea of writing up those recipes and getting a little plastic recipe box, and actually keeping a physical recipe box of your behaviors. I could definitely see, I don't know for sure that I'll do it, but I could see some value in writing it out and storing that. And it's like, look, this is my recipe for healthy behaviors, or, a healthy and meaningful life. I mean, whatever you want to, you could make a recipe for, and I'm sure that just the act of writing it out and storing it does little things like that do add up to change who you are as a person and what you do every day.
Yeah. In some later chapters, he addresses that exact idea, and those ideas around making these part of, incorporating these, and how to make that easier to incorporate that into your daily life. And that's, it's you're going down the right path for that, for sure.
Yeah. I like this. The idea of Pearl habits, creating beauty from irritations.
Yes.
It gets into, when things happen that you would rather didn't happen, you can actually use those as sort of a jumping off point to getting some positive things done. And he talks about, the example of the lady that basically every time her ex-husband went off on her, she used that as an opportunity to remind herself to do something nice for herself, to, listen to a new CD from an artist that she liked, or go, check off a movie from the list of stuff she wanted to see. And it had only positive benefits for her and her ex-husband, that it kind of chilled both of them out by just saying, every time this negative thing happens, I'm going to turn it into a positive. And I mean, being a person that can turn negative circumstances into a positive is about as good as it gets, right?
Yeah. And one of the things he said was, our energies kind of rub off on other people. So
right.
When she used to be, arguing with her husband all the time, now she'd almost kind of look forward to being, insulted by him, and it would turn into something, fun for her almost, but it would change her attitude. So she wasn't like arguing back. Right. And he could sense that energy. And what she'd said was an unexpected side effect was the fact that he kind of saw her shift in her energy, and her, she became a little bit more positive, and he ended up making some changes on his own, and now they get along well, because he's made some changes, because she kind of led by example, and gave out that positive energy. And, I think that really kind of plays into, law of attraction, in terms of what, the kind of energy that you're putting out there, you're going to attract back whatever that might be, or generate out there. And I really believe in that, if you're out, you're out and you're angry, and you've got a scowl on your face, and
right.
You're not going to attract people who want to feel good, right? People who already feel good, they're not looking to feel worse. They're not looking to feel bad. So they're not going to seek you out. They're going to avoid you, if anything, right? And vice versa. Somebody who may not be in a good mood, or somebody who's in a good mood, if they see you and you're happy and you're smiling, whatever, they want to maybe a little bit more of that. They might find ways to engage with you a little bit more than if you don't. And that also plays into one of BJ's maxims, which is, you change best by feeling good, not by feeling bad. And that also, I think, hormonally, our bodies are also primed to do new things, and to make changes and to take on challenges when we're feeling good, not when we're feeling bad. So, try to do things to make yourself feel good.
Yeah. And that's the thing, in this whole discussion of tiny habits and changing your behavior. It really can't be said enough that, one of the things Brene Brown says all the time is, if I was convinced that shaming people would help them to, be who I want them to be, or be who they want to be, then I would be happy to use shame as a tool to make that happen. But it just never works. And so since it never works, you can't shame yourself into the behavior you want. You can't shame other people into shame does not work. Being positive, feeling good doing things that are good for yourself and good for other people. That's what works. Not trying to, beat yourself up and tell yourself you're such a piece of crap because you can't get this done or whatever. Healthy dissatisfaction with saying, okay, the way things are right now is not good enough and I need to do something about it. That's one thing, but ascribing a lack of worth to yourself to make you do the thing that you think you need to do, it's just, it's real good in the short term, but it can make you give up that bad habit or start, that good habit, but don't count on it lasting for more than a couple days before you're just feeling crappy about yourself and the thing that you're trying to get done.
Yeah. And he goes through how to do that in some specific concrete ways and some of the exercises in the book. And we can talk about that on the Patreon episode.
Cool.
We can get into some of those ideas there. And I think, it's really helpful because that's where he kind of really helps you find where the rubber meets the road and take step-by-step actions in the exercises in the back of the book. And we'll go through those together on the Patreon for this one.
Cool. All right. Awesome. I think, real quick, I wanted to share something with you and the audience that I found a new YouTube channel that I've been doing a bit of binging on because I like these guys a lot and all their stuff is just top notch. It's a YouTube channel called Cinema Therapy, and it is two guys or two friends. One is a licensed psychologist or licensed therapist, and the other one is sort of a small independent film director. And they analyze movies and then talk about psychologically what's going on with the characters. And they've done a lot of the Marvel characters. They've done some DC characters, Disney movies. They really get into it, and these guys are good. And so their videos are generally 20 or 30 minutes long, but they did one I watched the other night when I couldn't sleep on Good Will Hunting, responding to Robin Williams' character as a therapist, and the guy said, most therapy that you see in movies is garbage, but they really had a lot to say for his character Sean and how he gave Will Hunting the therapy, and it's really interesting. And so I've been watching a lot of their videos, and I'm a big fan. So again, it's called Cinema Therapy, and check them out on YouTube. And I think if you like movies, if you like popular culture, and you like talking about psychology and therapy or thinking about it, it's a good channel. I recommend it.
I like it.
Another thing I did this for myself this weekend that completely changed my life that most people can't relate to is I went from a 4-gallon trash can in my camper to an 8-gallon trash can. And now the frequency that I have to take my garbage out, it's amazing. I can go days now, and now that I'm cooking a lot more of my meals and stuff and not eating out so much, I'm making a lot more garbage, and now life is so much better that I have a bigger garbage can. It is it's crazy how much better it is for me that I can just turn around and throw something in the garbage. I don't have to figure out a way how to stack it all up or pull up the edges of the bag to fit everything. It's great because I only have one garbage can in my place, and it's awesome. Life is so much better now.
Nice. You got room for all the bodies.
Exactly.
All right, sir.
All right.
This was a good one.
I think so too. I appreciate it, and I will chat with you again here shortly. We'll be going to a party on Saturday night. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Yes. For the Guys with Ties Christmas party. So yeah, it should be fun.
Awesome. All right. Talk to you soon, Dan.
All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.